On this episode of the podcast, my brother and fellow horseman of the podcast Apocalypse, Mike Hill, take a deep dive into Predator 1 and 2. These are two of my all-time favorites, and I hope you dig this episode. After you're done with this episode, make sure you check out my fellow horseman of the podcast Apocalypse, Everything Went Black podcast, Into the Necrosphere, the Necromaniacs podcast, Spitball Media, Iblis Manifestations, and the Soul Knocks podcast. Also, check out the Harwolf 666 podcast Teespring store. I have shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, shot glasses, and some other stuff on there. And that would be greatly appreciated if you check it out and, make some purchases and stuff. So thank you for that. And lastly, make sure you leave a rating on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts at. That helps me a lot to get, more people checking out the podcast and all that good stuff. So thanks so much. And once again, I hope you dig this episode. Busy, dude.
Dude, it's the last month of my life has been insane. Just like I started a new job, just like band practice, writing the new Tombs record. We're doing like pre-production stuff and just podcasting, like everything's just been crazy lately.
That's good, though. It's a lot of positive things, though, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a lot of positive stuff.
Yeah, man. And all the shows you've been going to as well, I've been, checking out. I'm like, fuck, y'all get some good shows by you. We don't get shit down here, man.
Dude, that's actually, I forgot to mention that. That's, my busy social life of going to, heavy metal and goth shows, man. It's been awesome,
I would love to have that opportunity because, like I said, we don't get jack shit. I got lucky and we had that Primitive Man show, they're one of my favorite bands, but I still had to drive 3 hours from where I'm at just to see them, which is no problem for me. But it's we don't get any fucking buddy worth of shit around this area.
That's the one. Well, one of the positive things, man. I live right outside the city. Jersey City, you can see across the Hudson, right into Manhattan. So I have access to Philadelphia, New York City, and there's shows out in Jersey too. So there's tons of opportunities to see bands out here.
Right. Yeah, you're kind of in the mecca of good shows, dude.
Pretty much, man. I got there's other things that annoy the shit out of me about living up here, but it is what it is.
If you want to go see Darius Rucker of Hootie and the Blowfish or some shitty ass fucking metal band that sounds like they're from 1999. Come to Charleston, South Carolina, because that's what we got, dude. Darius Rucker's he's from here. He went to high school with my aunt, and he's still a big deal around here, and I could give two shits about that,
Yeah, totally, dude. I understand.
It's horrible. All right. Before we get into our Predator talk, man, what kind of stuff are you watching now that's kind of noteworthy?
Well, since it's Halloween, been checking out a lot of cool movies, a lot of old stuff. One of my favorites, The Fog. That was something I recently watched. The old, radioactive bug movie, Them.
Oh yeah, that's
black
a good
and
one.
White one. Yeah.
Yeah.
After doing, I watched The Mist, and me and Jeff talked about it on the podcast, and that's sort of a combo Lovecraftian cosmic horror thing with a giant bug movie. So that prompted me to check out Them because that's probably one of my favorite of that genre,
Yeah.
And recently caught the new Exorcist movie last weekend. Me and my girlfriend went out to that, and I'll save my thoughts on that because I know we're going to do a full episode on it over at Necromaniacs. And
right.
But I got the one thing I am going to say is that I did not. I didn't see the warranted hatred for that movie. I don't see that warranted really. It's like, it's you can't compare it to the original. You can't even put it in the same universe as, Exorcist 1 and 3,
Right.
but that's not to say I liked it or not, but like, that's all I'm going to say. You know what I mean?
I guarantee it's probably still better than Exorcist 2.
Well, that's, some people have been very hyperbolic about it and saying, oh, it's Exorcist 2 is better than this. Like, I tend to disagree on that one. Exorcist 2 is a
Right.
fucking mess, man.
So bad, yeah. And you know, people are, man, where they get like fucking super hate on shit. Like, I get it. If a movie sucks, it sucks or whatever. But different people like different things, and some people might like the weird suckiness of some movies. You know what I mean? They might like just like bad movies. So I get it.
Yeah, the one movie I'm really looking forward to is Where Evil Lurks.
Oh hell yeah,
Dude,
hell
that
yeah.
looks incredible, man. And I loved Terrified when that came out a few years ago. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That's like, I got marked on my calendar when it drops on Shutter, so I'm going to definitely watch that as soon as it comes out.
That might be my most anticipated film for this year, just because how much I did like Terrified. And I thought Terrified was fucking like 10 out of 10 good, and that director has like a real sense of like scaring the fuck out of you.
100%, man. And I've been really anxious to see another film by him because, like I said, on the strength of Terrified being so good, and this one, the whole premise of it looks good, and some of the footage I've seen, like previews, looks really awesome too.
Oh yeah, totally, dude. That's high on my list.
And just Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's always a staple this time of year. Like that's like one of my favorite versions of Dracula. That's a good one. Curse of the Werewolf, the Hammer movie.
Oh yeah.
Revisited that one. That's probably one of my favorite Hammer films. Yeah, just killing it with like cool horror films. A couple of nights of the week I had to skip because of just band practice and shows and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up on the 31 Days of Horror, but if I'm not watching, like it's really hard when I get home from work. I do my workout and all this stuff. That's like an hour and a half, and then dinner and shit, and it's like 8 o'clock by that time. So if I don't do like a horror movie, I'm like doing a revisit of the X Files, which is always good. And I still throw that into like the Halloween 31 Days of Horror. As long as it's like something horror related, I think that counts.
yeah, totally, man. And I know you get up early in the morning too, so it's like the night times. You can't stay up too late these days too.
No, I'm usually passed out by about 10, man, because I'm up at like 4:30 and then, get home
Yeah.
around 4 and I'm like, fuck, I'm tired. So, but
But before we get going, dude, I gotta say, the new Abraxas horn track is awesome, dude. Really, really cool.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's been getting pretty good feedback and I'm glad it is because it is pretty like avant-garde, weird, dark shit. So I'm like I'm glad people are digging it and I'm like hopefully it doesn't like make you like fall into a spiral of like deep darkness or anything like that.
Well,
But
dude, like I listened to yesterday. It came out yesterday was the 13th, and
yes.
we had our show out in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania last night, and we drove back. It's only an hour, 2 hours away, so we drove home after the show, and it's late at night. Pretty much everyone's asleep in the van, and I was playing that track, man, just through the darkness of like Pennsylvania desolation, and it was just like the perfect setting for that song.
That's badass. Yes, that's definitely the perfect setting, man. Dark and fucking, yeah, out there in Pennsylvania. I could totally see that.
But yeah, dude, props. It was I think it's like your best work to date, and I'm really, really stoked. Great track.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot coming from you, dude. Like, highly respect your opinion and stuff. And that helps like fuel me on because like I get in these like crazy moods where I'm just like, I got to get this shit out of my head. So I'm going to, do some keyboard synth shit or maybe throw a guitar in. But this time it's just like, I sat there and like all this shit started just like coming out like the whole like this a bunch of like dark weird energy and stuff. I had to get it out and like until it was done, I was like in a weird like anxiety type state. It's like I got to get this shit done. It's got to get done. So I did all in like one weekend. I did like my mastering stuff, which isn't 100% great. I'm not a fucking sound engineer. I do the best I can with that, but did what I could with that, and I get all done in like a weekend. And I worked on the art and stuff, and that came out pretty cool. So
Dude, even the artwork is incredible too, man. I like, you know, was kind of blown away by the artwork. It's just real, like almost like a werewolf body horror, like Cronenbergian kind of thing to it, you know?
yeah, definitely that's what I was going for, man. Like over the past I'd say 3 or 4 years, I've gotten pretty decent with like doing Photoshop art. And I don't know, I like doing the whole like photo manipulation stuff. So like being able to like incorporate like Photoshop and stuff instead of using like some cheap ass regular app that I have on my phone, but I use the Photoshop app and stuff. And you can do a lot of weird shit with that, you
Well,
know.
dude, honestly, to me, that stuff's magic, man. I can't do anything with like visual art. So it's like, I'm like, that looks great, you know, and it fits the whole vibe of the track. And I don't know, the whole thing is just like awesome. So congratulations.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Also, recently I checked out, I don't know what your thoughts on this was, but the new VHS 85. I thought it was pretty fucking good.
Me and Jeff we just recently recorded an episode on it. So yeah,
Oh, sweet.
yeah, it's, you know, in general, I liked it. You know what I mean? There's the strength of like two pieces on there that carry the whole, thing, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, the Dream Kill one, and
Oh, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that one's right up my alley, man. And like, it's funny because like we talk about this a little bit, where that one, even though that's like, what the hell is his name? Something Derrickson, the guy who did Sinister, produced
Uh-huh.
that one, and even though he's like an established filmmaker, I still feel like the kind of whole analog horror like subgenre, like how there's always people making horror films on YouTube, like the
Mm.
Skinamarink stuff. Like that dude came from that scene.
Right.
I feel like that influenced that piece so intensely that I'm really interested over the next couple of years how analog horror kind of leaches its way into like more mainstream stuff.
Oh, yeah, dude. Totally, man. I'm all about it. Like, I love Skinamarink. I love all that kind of shit, even though like 80% of people I know really hate that movie. I fucking love it. I know you love that movie. And like,
Oh yeah.
there's a group of us that really love that shit. And yeah, I want to see more of it.
Yeah, I got a chance to see that in the theater, man, and it was pretty funny because it's like where I used to live. There was like an AMC theater, like real close to where, like 8 minutes away. So my Friday night thing was like go and train for a couple hours, come home, eat real quick, and then head out to the 10 o'clock last showing. And I went to see Skinamarink in the last showing on Friday night, like in this mall. And there was like one other guy, and then like a couple were there, and I'm like 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes into the movie, a couple left, and then the other guy was like sound asleep, and then like it was just basically me in the theater by myself. So it just added to the whole like uncomfortableness of watching that weird drony like movie. And then when I left, it was everything was empty. Like the mall was like empty, the parking lot was empty, and it just created this like really really intense like liminal space like creepiness.
Yeah, it probably felt like you just got transported into like another dimension where like everything's going now. Like
Yeah,
you like
totally.
this the creature or whatever you want to call it from Skinamarink kind of like took you to his world now. Like you're trapped and there's nobody around you anymore.
That's exactly what it felt like, man. It's crazy.
Man, great. Yeah, that's great. Also, I finally watched the last voyage of the Demeter, and I liked it. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like a 9 out of 10 for me or anything like that. A strong 8 because there
Yeah.
was a lot of CGI in there, but still, even with the CGI, like the acting and the actual, I thought Dracula looked pretty cool, especially towards the end with that. At first, he was a little bit like kind of weak and rat-like. I'm like, come on, dude, this is Dracula. But the more blood he got, the more he kind of, got stronger and stuff. But overall, man, I was pretty impressed with it.
Yeah, we're I caught that. Me and my girlfriend checked that one out, and she's a big Dracula fan. So me and Tina checked it out at one of the viewing experience itself was horrible at this other theater we went to,
Mhm.
but the movie itself was killer. And I'm interested because it's like not just a rehashing of the gothic version of Dracula that we've seen a million times. You know, it's not. I mean, we got Christopher Lee, we got like Bela Lugosi, we got Gary Oldman, we got some of the greats have played Dracula in the past. So why rehash it and try to recreate something that's already been perfectly done?
Right.
So this version of it, I think, is like interesting because it's like that kind of like more like a Count Orlok sort of vibe to the way he looks. And I really hope they make more because at the end of that film, it's wide open for sequels and a whole other universe. So it's interesting. I back it. Not a 10, not a 9 out of 10, but definitely in the right direction for me.
Yeah, totally. And I do want to see that universe like expanded because they left it open, like you said. Like it kind of went into like almost how the Bram Stoker film was. Dracula's got his like hat and glasses on. He's more human like towards the end. But so
A lot of questions, man. You know what I mean? That was the good thing about it. Like you want to, they don't really go into too much about vampire. Like he's just this presence on the ship, and it's more about the characters surrounding it. But I'm hoping that in like other movies that come after this, they kind of go into like more of his origin and like what his deal is. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I'm totally for that. Anything Dracula, anything like werewolf stuff, I am totally down for. So less zombies, more Dracula.
Ah, you know how I feel about that too, man.
Oh,
So
yeah, these zombie movies. All right, so our main focus of this episode, we're going to talk about one of my favorite all-time movies ever made. And I also think it's one of the best horror, like sci-fi action movies ever made, or it could be the best. I kind of think it is the best. But we're talking about 1987's Predator, not to be confused with The Predator, which is horrible. you know and it's weird. Like this should be called The Predator, but yeah, it's weird, man. But yeah, fucking The Predator is great.
yeah, dude, I have to agree. The first Predator movie, um, excellent. Off the heels of Arnold Schwarzenegger being the Terminator and playing Conan. Conan is like probably my all-time favorite sword and sorcery hero.
Hmm.
And I was vaguely aware of Arnold when that movie came out, but now, once Predator surfaced, he was like a huge action star. And I was a kid when I saw this, so it was like I wanted to see it because Arnold was in it. I always thought Arnold was like the coolest back then.
Oh yeah, dude, 100%. I still think he's cool as shit too. And back when this came out, this was like prime Arnold. Like just getting done with his like bodybuilding stuff, and always still like super jacked, and like it's the Arnold that we grew up with. And yeah, I think to me, this is probably my favorite film of his. It's hard to say though, because there's so much good shit. Because the Terminator 2 is like, which one are you gonna pick? That's kind of hard to decide there, but it's definitely one of my favorite Arnold films for sure.
Yeah, well, for me, Terminator is always going to be, as a film, my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Even though his role in that is cool, but like I think that his acting has improved as he went on in his career, obviously, and he developed more of
Right.
like like a character. He became more of like a confident actor. I thought he was cool in Total Recall, and Running Man. I thought those are pretty solid Arnold movies too.
Oh yeah, 100%, dude. Both of those are great. I think too, what sets him off in Predator is like he's got a great fucking like backing, like cast of like awesome actors. Like you got Carl Weathers, you got the late great Kevin Peter Hall who played the Predator, which
Yep.
is so much better than what it could have been because about the whole Jean Claude Van Damme playing Predator thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. That was like something that surfaced years later, where Jean Claude was supposed to play the Predator. I just a totally different vibration with him in the suit, because he's like, I mean, no disrespect, but he's not this physically imposing guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jean Claude's probably like maybe like 180 pounds or something, probably in his prime, or maybe 170 or something like that, And yeah, because actually George St. Pierre, it was a welterweight, and Jean Claude Van Damme is like about the same size as George St. Pierre. So like, I would say he's probably about like 175. You need
Yeah.
like a 230-pound dude to play the Predator.
Yeah, and somebody like super tall and intimidating too, because I think Kevin Peter Hall was like 7'2" or 7'3". Like it worked
Yeah,
out worked perfectly, you know.
yeah, totally. And of
But
course,
yeah,
you got the great Jesse Ventura too, as
oh dude,
Sergeant Cooper, or Blaine Cooper, I think his name was.
yeah. Yeah, Jesse was a badass. This is back in his prime too, you know, like all these guys are in their prime of like being in shape and just being like on the top of their game, you know.
Like, I wonder if, like, when they cast this movie, if like they just were like, all right, cool, like, here's like a cycle of steroids and a high protein diet, and here's a workout program, and because even the guys who aren't like the less physical dudes are still like yoked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody's jacked in this. Supposedly, from what I hear, Arnold trained everybody just for this role. Like all those people like were under Arnold's training and regimen and like whatever supplements they were given, you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure there's a lot of steroids used here. I mean, like you say, even the small guys are super jacked and they're usually not jacked in any other roles they're in. Like they get that big that fast, like, you know, you need a little help sometimes.
But that's just like the '80s like action hero like trip. Like just no shirt, sweaty, jacked, veins, like that whole thing. It's just like you don't really see that a whole lot these days. So it's like definitely like an '80s kind of thing.
And I love it, man. It's like the it's so over the top and like you know, it's like comic book shit, you know. And yeah, we don't really get that nowadays. Like, yeah, definitely don't get that nowadays.
Yeah, it's just you know, but the cast itself too is great, and the opening scene where they get out of the helicopter, everyone gets out, and then you know Arnold is the last one, and you see him lighting his cigar, and like he just like dramatically like emerges from the helicopter, and it's just like epic in that way.
It is. Soundtrack's really cool. Well, they got a. I think it starts off with like, is it a CCR playing? I believe they have the CCR song up in the helicopter before they land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that shit's
Um,
really epic.
but typical with a lot of these films that became these franchises, like it's always the first one that is like the one that stands out. And as much as I like Aliens, like the second Alien movie,
Hmm.
the first Alien's great. As much as I like Predator, well, not Predator 2, but Terminator 2, as much as I think that's a great movie, Terminator still stands out as like the one, I'm trying to say. And I think that's the
Oh
same
yeah.
story with Predator.
Yeah, I totally agree with that when it comes to like Terminator and Terminator 2. Like I'm a more of a Terminator fan just because I think it's a dark, like I think it's a horror movie, you know. It's definitely a slasher, like the way, you know, Terminator just dispatches everybody and with Predator too, Predator is kind of a slasher too, and it's a little bit darker. There's not a lot of like comedy in there. I know with the second Predator film, which I still love, is there's some comedy thrown in there and stuff, and it's a little bit lighter, sort of, but still pretty dark too. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. The first Predator is like, you know, the best.
Well, Predator, I'll call it Predator 1, is overall, like as a film, I think superior to Predator 2, even though Predator 2 is fun.
Hmm.
But it just holds together more as like a story and the way the story progresses. And I agree that it's basically a slasher movie in the way that like there's like a series of victims and that get taken out, and like in a way like Arnold is like the final girl, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
Yeah, and cool thing with the Predator too, man, is just the costume for the Predator, like the special effects and the, you know, the makeup and everything. Even till this day or whatever, it's still like fucking A plus, and you really don't see any better creature effects than what you see in the Predator. Like, you know, he's fucking gold, you know.
yeah, and in the age of CGI, it still just reinforces the fact that practical effects, were the way to go. Like a guy in a suit, and I mean, yeah, there's definitely some digital effects, like when he, becomes invisible, and some of the weapons, use of the weapons, were, were obviously digital effects, primitive for the '80s, but at the time they were state of the art. When you look back, it looks a little dated, but it's still way better than any kind of like CGI like sort of thing that is common today.
Yeah, you just can't pull off certain things with CGI. I don't think, especially when it comes to like creatures. Still to this day, I haven't really seen a like convincing like alien or like a werewolf or anything like that. That's CGI. To me, it all looks pretty fucking fake. But the old school like costumes and everything. That's where it sells it for me.
Now the Predator itself as a hunter, like yeah, the movie's cool, but like I always kind of felt like the Predator as this galactic trophy hunter was kind of like the idea of him is kind of weak. You know what I mean? Like he's like this dude who shows up on a planet with all this superior technology, just like just murders like a bunch of like animals and people and stuff, and collects like their skulls. It's also super metal and cool, but also like kind of like shooting fish in a barrel if you think about it.
Yeah, literally, right? With his
Yeah,
fucking laser gun and shit. Yeah.
yeah. Like that thought came to me later on in life, but originally I'm like, oh man, this is like, you know, really terrifying with this like unseen predator out there, like sniping people and dispatching everyone in these like sick, like interesting ways.
Well, I know from like reading a good bit of the comics, the Predator comics, like what they do, they send these younger predators down to hunt on these different planets or whatever, and they kind of gotta earn their like respect amongst other predators and shit. So I think it's kind of like a training thing for these young predators, like from the first one here, they like get his skull or whatever and try to beat their best and all that way. He gets respect amongst the other predators, so that part's pretty cool.
Actually, you touched on a thing that I was going to bring up too, is like the whole Dark Horse expansion of those universes. I thought was those are like some of my favorite comics from back in like the '90s and late '80s.
Yeah, dude, they're badass. They're a bit hard to come by. I was reading them through Comixology at one time, and then they took them all down for some reason. Or they might be back up now, but they're really good, and they really expand that universe like big time.
Especially the Alien one. I have a bunch of them, man. Like I have there's a bunch of collections that came out a bunch of years ago, and like the Alien one was always my favorite. And there's also the Terminator, uh, Predator, Predator versus Alien. The crossover was Dark Horse did one too.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's even like a Thing one too, a Thing comic that came out, which I thought was really cool.
That's badass. From the comics, I learned that the aliens themselves were bred for the predators to hunt, and then
Yeah,
shit got out of hand, and a few of them escaped or whatever, and fucking they got stronger and shit, and became like a real threat to the predators. But I thought that was really cool.
yeah, it's great how that Dark Horse did a good job of writing this like overarching storyline and universe, and it almost you almost wish that there would be a whole like series of films around that stuff too.
Yeah, they tried to do something similar to that when they did the Alien versus Predator movies, where they like had the actual alien eggs and all inside that like temple, and then the predators dropped in to hunt those down and shit. But I don't know, I just didn't really dig those movies very much.
I wanted to like them, and I definitely watched them, but yeah, there are things about them like certain ideas that were put out in those films which I thought were cool, but yeah, like they're not very rewatchable. You know what I mean?
No, and especially what the second one that came out of the Alien versus Predator series, Requiem. That shit was so dark, like it was filmed so fucking dark. I couldn't even tell what the hell was going on. I'm like, is this a fuck up with the DVD I had? But no, it was filmed that dark, and it's really bad and muddy. I can't tell what's going on. Something like most of the scenes in that fucking thing.
Yeah, it was hard to see what was going on. Maybe that was by design. Maybe they had like, not enough money for the effects or something. I don't know why that movie was almost like completely unwatchable because of that.
Yeah, and the storyline was crap. I do prefer the one before the Alien versus Predators one over that one. I wish it was rated R. I think they could get away with a few more things because it was like PG-13, and that's kind of lame for a Predator movie. I want to see all the blood and gore, and yeah, it's supposed to be violent.
The Back to the Predator, the first one, like one of the things that I thought was cool about it was how towards the end when it's just Arnold by himself, it's kind of reduced to almost this like folk horror like vibe, where he's like out in this like jungle with primitive weapons, just no guns, and it's just this like very almost like folksy kind of confrontation between like a modern man reduced to primitivism and like this unseen alien entity haunting him.
Right. No, I definitely can see that, man. And yeah, that's a brutal fucking scene where he's getting the shit beat out of him, and he covers himself up with all the mud to hide from the stuff from the predator and shit. And yeah, it's brutal, man. He gets his ass beat, but he gets his revenge at the end.
Oh yeah, totally. Predator 2 now, what are your like thoughts on that one, man? I just recently watched both of these just in preparation for talking today.
Dude, I love Predator too. I do prefer the first one though. Overall, first one's a better movie, but I love the second one, and just because it's so fucking it's insane. You got fucking Bill Paxton, which I love Bill Paxton. Anything he plays and he brings that Bill Paxton energy, you
Oh yeah.
know. And then fucking Gary Busey, one of like the main like science hunter guys that wants to capture the predator. I mean, it's just so fucking wild, and the way it was filmed too, where it was filmed at, it's so like dark and dirty, man. It's like what was it? Like during the riots in Los Angeles and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's just so over the fucking top, explosion wise, everything wise, super over the top. Love it.
The funny thing about Gary Busey in this movie, is it Special Agent Keys, I think is his name in this
Yeah.
film. He's like, you're used to seeing him just wilding out, in a film playing the crazy guy.
Hmm.
But in this one, he's like this kind of straight laced, like G man, like scientist sort of dude. But you can still see like the insanity lurking behind his eyes, like in the scenes that he has, even when he's trying to like, be all professional and composed and everything.
Oh yeah.
When you look into his eyes, you can still see like that crazy, like manic energy, like it's about to burst out of him. It's like not very convincing that he's like this composed, scientific sort of guy. It's kind of interesting that conflict.
Yeah, it's definitely not convincing, and that's pretty much Gary Busey. I don't think there's anything normal about him. I think the craziness is him, especially if you see some of his like weird videos he's throwing out now, like very bizarre, man.
Yeah, he's definitely like this unhinged dude. But like, this is like random. But have you ever seen the Buddy Holly story where Gary
Ah,
Busey plays Buddy Holly?
oh shit, no, I haven't seen that. Oh god.
That's literally the first thing I've ever seen Gary Busey in as a kid. Like when it was like on tele. I was like a like really really young kid, man. Because like when I first started listening to music, I listened to like like Roy Orbison and like Buddy Holly and stuff like that. When I was like 9, like my
Hmm.
parents were playing that kind of music. And the Buddy Holly story was on television, and that's I thought it was a cool movie. It was interesting, and the music I was listening to that kind of music, and then the name Gary Busey just stuck in my head as Buddy Holly, and then as time went on, I start to realize that this guy's like a maniac, you know what I mean? And he's like definitely like a different type of dude than I maybe had the ideas about like when I was growing up.
Oh yeah, dude, totally. He's a legit nut job, but I love his shit though. Like I like the stuff he's in. Like he brings that crazy fucking energy to everything he's ever in, So
Yeah. So he's a great character. And you got tons of like cool. You got Bill Paxton, you got Morton Downey Jr. as
oh
like
yeah,
basically himself. He's playing like the hardcore news guy, it's like hardcore news or whatever.
yeah.
Ruben Blades is in it. Uh of course Danny Glover, starring Danny Glover as the star. And Maria Conchita Alonso, who was like always in those 80s films, like Colors and like, Blood In, Blood Out. Like she was like a staple if you needed like a Mexican American actress to play like some badass chick. You hired Maria Conchita Alonso, and in this film, she plays this real hard like detective. This was pretty awesome cast in this one.
Yeah, totally. She's always a badass, like you said, in all those '80s and early '90s action horror films or sci-fi films, she was always in them. So yeah, she's awesome. Also, I really dig King Willie in this, like the whole like voodoo gang and shit, man. I thought that was another weird, like crazy ass like twist to throw in like a Predator movie, but it worked really well. And like the King Willie character is not really in there long, but his presence is felt, So that sword fighting scene, well, he draws a sword anyways. How much fighting went on there. But that was an awesome fucking scene.
Yeah, King Willie was cool, and just the violence in two, the violence kind of outshines the violence in one. Like it's
Oh
just
yeah.
as far as like gore and like it might not like when I watched it maybe back in the day when I watched it, the two seemed kind of equal as far as like gore and violence went. But looking back, watching it again, I'm like,
Mhm.
man, this is like way bloodier than the first one.
Yeah, it's extremely gory, especially like the skinning scenes. I mean, it starts off pretty much with the whole like the cops versus the gangsters and the rioters and stuff, and then Predator steps in there, and you got a fucking dude hanging up at the very top, already skinned and shit. Like it starts off incredibly violent. There's no like kind of like getting into it. It's already there when you start the film.
Yeah, and taking it from like the jungles into like an urban environment, LA, amidst this like turmoil and chaos and everything was like a cool move, I think, in the movie where like, there's like murder and violence and riots, and then sort of undercover there's like this other thing going on, which initially they think is like a serial killer,
Hmm.
but it turns out obviously to be this predator, and I think that was like a cool like element to it, like almost this crime drama sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, and it's the perfect time if you're a predator and you want to hunt some people and stuff. This is like the perfect time to do it because they're not going to notice you. Like they don't really notice him, and they think he's a serial killer, like you said. But you can just go along doing this thing. They probably have this shit like scouted out. Like, all right, they're having a whole bunch of turmoil and shit going on this planet. I think we can get in there and do some good hunting. And the weather's nice. It's super hot. We're predators. We like the hot weather. So.
Yeah. What's interesting too is like Bill Paxton being in this second, installment of Predator, also being in Aliens too.
Right.
That was an interesting parallel that Paxton is in both second installments of these like pretty epic franchise sci-fi horror franchises.
Yeah, that is pretty badass. And he's been in a lot of really, really good shit. Like, I don't think there's anything I don't like Bill Paxton in. You know what I mean?
One of my favorite roles is you ever see that movie Frailty?
Oh hell yeah, I love Frailty,
Yeah, him and Matthew McConaughey are both in that, man, and that's like probably one of my favorite roles for him.
dude. I totally agree with that. And also, I think that was the film that really gave me It gave me more respect for Matthew McConaughey and his acting because before then, it's like he's always in those like rom com bullshit movies and stuff. But when he started playing in like the horror genre, then his final like the top of the mountain for me is True Detective season one, of course, with McConaughey. But it really sold me on him as being an actor and like teaming up with Bill Paxton and Frailty. That's perfect combo.
Yeah, it's funny because like I feel the same way about him. Like I didn't really pay attention to him prior to that, and then I remember watching Frailty, and I'm like, oh, that's that dude from like all these other movies that I don't really care about, and I'm like, that's when he put him on the map for me, and then then he went through a long period, but then when he emerged on True Detective, and you know how I feel about that
Oh yeah.
first season, man, it's like one of my favorite things ever, really. And yeah, you can see strains of that character, like some of the devices that he used to portray the character in Frailty. You can see little hints of that he might have applied as Rust Cole like later on.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, wherever he pulls his dark stuff from, man, he does it really well. He switches gears like total 180 from being the romantic comedy guy to being like this fucking dark, fucking brooding dude that he does a lot and a lot of his like, other roles. He fucking nails it. Definitely a lot of respect for him.
One of the things I learned about him when Ralph and I were doing the True Detective episode over on Everything Went Black was that McConaughey had written like this like 100-page backstory for Rust Cole,
Wow.
like to help him develop like the character and stuff that wasn't even used, like details about the character that he just wrote out so that it would be in his energy when he was acting the role.
Hmm.
And that's some of the, like, I don't really think about acting so much, I mean, I think more about writing and like that sort of thing, and narratives, but I don't think about the process of actors and some of the things they go through to portray these emotions. And that would really impress me, that he would go through those lengths just to develop the character, and it shows, because like Rust Cole was like one of the most complex developed film characters that I've ever had the the opportunity to watch. It was incredible, I thought.
Yeah, dude, totally. But yeah, going back to Predator 2, I thought it was a bit of a shakeup when when Arnold wasn't going to be in the Predator, which is fucking it was pretty weird at the time, but I do think Danny Glover pulled it off pretty well, because he's kind of like a normal guy. Even though he's jacked too, man. Danny Glover's a jacked older guy. He's always been like older, and everything's ever played has been the old guy. But he's no Arnold, but he's still, I think he pulled the role off really well. Just kind of like an everyday dude, sorta, and doing this kind of shit and going against a fucking predator. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Danny Glover definitely gets respect. Definitely like like in the normal everyday world, like he would be like, you'd see him on the street. You'd be like, that guy's in good shape. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
However, if you compare it, the cast of Predator 2, just as far as like yokedness, jacked, you know, it, it's like there's no steroid abuse in Predator 2. Like Predator 1, they used all the steroids, and then Predator 2, they just didn't have a budget for it, I guess. No one's like busting out of their shirts or anything like that.
No, they spent all the budget on fucking gun props, ammo, and explosions. They didn't have enough for steroids on this one.
But yeah, that's yeah, and also it's like Predator 2 is just a little bit more of like maybe like action oriented too, as far as like gunfights and gang violence and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely say so. It's definitely a lot more action going on, and it's a bigger scope too. They're not limited to a jungle like from the first one. Like you get a whole fucking city to play around with and stuff. Like I'm pretty sure the budget for this one was a good bit more than the first one, just how fucking big it is in scope.
Yeah, but I got to be honest though, I kind of prefer the more claustrophobic, uh, confined vibe of the first one, because it's like being alone out in the wilderness with one of these things hunting you is like infinitely like more unsettling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely because you really, if you're in the jungle, you don't have anywhere to run. You can't like escape into a building or fucking jump in a car and haul ass. Like you're there with the predator, man. There's no escaping. Like in the second film, you can kind of sort of like buy yourself some time to get away. It's eventually going to catch up and get you, but you got a better chance surviving in the second one.
Yeah, and also at the end they reveal that there's like this whole other culture of these guys. Like in the first one, you don't really, there's no world building. It's just like, all right, there's this dude trucking around the universe, like killing people and collecting trophies. And then in the second one at the end, and there's like the epic battle, they reveal themselves as like there's this whole subculture of these predators. They all have different, helmets and stuff, and slightly different, armor and things like that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, man. Like the expansion of the universe and all, knowing that there's a whole bunch of different type of predators, and they're like living underneath the city for I don't know how long, because they had that big giant ship under there, and it looks like it was there for a while because things were being built over it. So yeah, the expansion of the universe could have been really cool if the director from this film or the first film would have expanded and did their own third film. I think it would have been pretty cool.
See, that was like the rewatch of that, the recent rewatch of Predator 2
Hmm.
made me think that, one, like you touched on it when you said you didn't really know how long they'd been existing under the city, and the fact that, they can be invisible, they can completely conceal themselves from any observers. that you might think like, wow, this could be like a whole other exploration of different parallel stories that have to
Hmm.
do with like, maybe some of these serial killers or disappearances of people had to do more with the predators and than just like, murders, like typical murders. And this on the rewatch, like I was intrigued by that. I kind of thought, it was, that would have been a really cool plot line to develop for future films, but it just never went anywhere.
And also, if you notice, like their trophy hall they had down in the spaceship, there was like they had dinosaur skulls there, different animal skulls. Of course, they had like the old the Civil War gun that was given to Danny Glover at the end. But so yeah, that makes it seem like they had been down there for a long time. So like, let's expand on this and see what they've been doing since then. Let's go back and fucking show some prehistoric shit. Show some like Civil War shit or whatever with them hunting people down. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, wasn't there sort of a callback to that in the more recent Predator movie that came out?
Yeah, there was a prey. Yep.
Yeah, and like that's, once again, like there's a cool opportunity to like, have the predators show up in cave paintings and things, because you know how like the whole ancient alien thing where
Hmm.
people are looking at artwork from ancient cultures and there's like, oh yeah, clearly this is a spaceship, or clearly this is like a guy wearing a space helmet, and this is like, that's kind of the direction I really wished that Predator had gone into, is like, they're part of like these folklores of different cultures and different religions and things like that. That would have been like an excellent thing to develop. And they keep trying to, like I feel like right now in like filmmaking, there's all this like revisiting of like old, you know, um, concepts, like the new Exorcist movie that just came out, Prey, the new Hellraiser, that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it would have been great, especially since like there's this sort of rekindled interest in folk horror,
Right.
to have the Predators become part of some weird mythology. You know what I mean? Some Arthur Macken like underworld or something.
That would be fucking awesome, man. But no, we keep throwing out these fucking weird, like kind of like redos of like the Predator and all that stuff in Exorcist, and they're pretty lame. Like I didn't like Prey very much. It was okay, but a lot of stuff they cut out from what I heard, like was a lot of the practical effects for the Predator. They ended up like going, they wanted to go CGI with them, but they already had a whole outfit like done up and everything that wasn't, no kind of like CGI and shit, and they cut it at the last minute. I think that really fucked things up because he looks pretty bad, especially the super CGI'd out elements of that.
Also, the dialogue was terrible and Prey.
Ah, yeah,
It's like they sound like they're modern people talking. It's
yep.
like, yeah, that was just, it takes you out of the whole like, illusion of being in an ancient, world.
I think that was the biggest thing for me was the dialogue. I'm like, this. I mean, this doesn't sound right. Like why are they talking so modern? Like this makes no sense whatsoever. I think that was the biggest thing that took me out of it.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, I wanted to like that movie, and once again, that's like, I'm not a hater, you know what I mean? Like I want to like a lot of these things, man. Like I want to go in excited to see these movies, and and I just feel like maybe the wrong people are making these films, or too many hands are getting involved in the script writing, or that kind, you know what I mean? And like it just doesn't have like the same energy of the original movies. And I'm not saying you got to do something exactly the same, but at least like, I don't know, continue the vibe or something, And a lot of these like expansions and remakes and stuff just fall flat with me.
Yeah, it's like they lost their edge. Like with the Hellraiser, the new Hellraiser film didn't have an edge to it. And I thought it was, man. Like first couple of scenes of that film, I was like, oh shit, we're going back to like some like BDSM, like Hellraiser shit. But it totally like goes somewhere else. And like the new Prey movie, like, I don't know. There's no edge to it.
Yeah, and like, I mean, with the Hellraiser movie, I don't remember, but didn't like Clive Barker like back it on some level? Like he was like kind of,
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is like a worthy expansion or something, right?
yeah. He totally backed and stuff. And I was like, oh fuck yeah, Clyde Barker's on board with this. I am totally ready to see this. And yeah.
Yeah, because like when you watch the first Hellraiser, you kind of like, I remember when I was a kid and I watched it, I was like, man, I don't know, is this okay for me to be watching this movie? You know, it's
Right.
like, you know, I'm like, I don't know, man, this is like a little too intense for me. You know, some of the things that they're doing in here, it's like, I'm not sure if I should be allowed to watch this movie, you know, but yeah, the new one is just like completely sanitized and just like, you know, kind of sterile to me, you know?
Yeah, that's the feeling I get, the sterile feeling. And it's not 100% bad movie. No, I give it like a 7 out of 10. You know, it's definitely watchable, but it's just like there's nothing dangerous about it. You know, like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel
And
forbidden like the first Hellraiser, the second Hellraiser films. Any of those older Hellraiser films, they all have like a forbidden feeling about them. You know, that was Clive Barker's thing. You know, writing the first Hellraiser. And this one here, like I said, this I don't know, it feels very generic.
have you ever read The Hellbound Heart? Like
Oh hell yeah,
yeah, the novella that Clive Barker, you know, that was based on. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's the first that the film and the novella are pretty close, you know, and there's just some subtle things about Frank that are different, but like for the most part, they're, you know, real accurate the way it's portrayed. And like, you know, Hellraiser 2 was cool, but then it just quickly devolved into like, all right, we have this snappy character that we can exploit, you know, with Pinhead. And that's when I kind of like lost me a little bit.
Yeah, the ones after two definitely aren't like high quality, but I do find them fun, and they're still pretty dark and this they're fucking weird as hell, you know, especially like the Hellraiser in space. I think it was like Bloodlines or whatever, which I
Yeah,
really like that
Bloodlines.
one. They do have some really cool ideas, and I do think they're all really fun, and I love the effects in all those ones up to a certain point, you know.
And once again, the comic book expansions of Hellraiser were better than the sequels, some of the movies that came out.
Oh, yeah, I do 100% agree on that one. Yeah, definitely better than the sequels and all.
There was talk of they're doing like a TV series, like a Hellraiser show. That never went anywhere either. I remember that was like this big item, this big news item for a while.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. I think they're like, all right, fuck it, we're just gonna do this movie and we're gonna put it on Hulu. Because if I'm not mistaken, like the same director now was supposed to do the HBO TV series of Hellraiser, which would probably been fucking awesome. Really expand that shit out. HBO, you know, do whatever you want to do. But I think last minute is like, well, we're just gonna do a movie and we're gonna sell it to Hulu or whatever. So I think that's where they fucked up.
Yeah, totally. Because I think that there's definitely you know, something there with doing like a episodic telling of that, you know, of the Hellraiser world, like the Cenobite world, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of like shit you could do with that. A lot of storylines you can go. And shit, instead of trying to just make one fucking film and shove everything in there, like let's expand the universe, you know?
You know, totally.
Last thing I want to talk about in the Predator universe is I think the last good Predator film, decent anyways, I liked it, was Predators by Robert Rodriguez. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that one was decent. That was like when you had the group of those guys that were convicts on the planet, and
Hmm.
Adrian Brody was in it, and yeah, that one was definitely fun and watchable, and there's nothing in it that made me cringe, really. You know.
No, and it paid a lot of good homage to the original first two. Soundtrack wise, I think they had the same dude doing the soundtrack and everything, and it felt like a Predator movie. Unlike everything else after the first two films, don't feel like Predator movies to me.
Yeah, so like if you just took those three films and called it a day, uh, to right now, I think that they would have been in good shape. You know.
Yeah, and instead they went with what the Predator, and it's a super CGI'd out fucking Predator and shit, and it's horrible. Those are the worst, man. Like, there's another one scheduled to come out too. I think actually it's going to be a second Prey movie that's coming out pretty soon. So we'll see how
A
that one
second
goes.
in the same world or like in a different timeline, or you know any
I'm not
details
too
about it?
sure on that. I think it's gonna be in a little bit different timeline. I think it's gonna deal with something else war wise. It's gonna be set back in like I think in the 1800s maybe. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I do know it's set to come out and it's gonna be by the same people and everything. So
You know, and one of the other disappointing thing about Prey, you know, not to like beat up too much on that movie, but you know, once again they had an opportunity, like they just kind of touched on it. You know, like if these like predators have been part of like been on you know visiting planet Earth for thousands of years, that's such an interesting element to pick up on. And
Hmm.
they just, I feel like that's a really good opportunity, especially if you're going to do multiple films and sequels and all this other stuff, like to connect it somehow into like folklore of ancient cultures. Because, wouldn't you think that you got these like really intense looking things out there that reveal themselves like occasionally and then disappear, that would be part of like some mythology or something like that?
Right. Yeah, totally. I'm not sure why it isn't, but that would be something like really killer, like a base a whole film off of, instead of like shit they're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, there could even be like some guy like researching something. I mean, this is me just going off on a flight of fancy of stuff that I like to read, But like, I would love to see a movie like that. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, dude, totally. Shit, I'd like to see a Predator movie when they're back in prehistoric times, just hunt dinosaurs. How
Fuck
cool would
yeah,
that be?
man.
I want to see one take
Absolutely.
down a T-Rex.
Yeah, dude. So now you're talking.
Yeah. See, we need to write a movie, man. I think we can do it right. You know.
Yeah, we just start a production company, man, and just like produce the film, these sequels or these expansions the way we know that it has to be done.
Yeah, I mean, we know these films, so obviously, these newer directors or people coming out now don't really know the subject matter very well. So,
Yeah, totally.
oh yeah, well, yeah, I think we pretty much covered a good portion of the Predator universe that's worth covering. We did touch on some of the newer films or whatever, but the ones that matter most, especially the first one and the second one, I think we did pretty good at covering that. So,
Oh, definitely, dude. And it's always good to catch up. I love talking with you, and you know,
oh yeah, man, it's always a pleasure talking with you, dude, and stuff. And I hope the rest of your tour goes good. Hopefully, yeah, have some good crowds out there and stuff, and it's killer.
oh
So,
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's only 3 dates, but it's cool. I mean, this year's been kind of quiet for us. Just a bunch of things have been canceled and postponed, and they're kind of disappointed about some touring opportunities. But things are a little quiet. But we're like I mentioned before we started recording that we're in pre-production for our new album. So that's big item on the to-do list right now is to get that thing finished. At least the writing done and the recording and the production and all that sort of stuff.
yeah, man, I totally look forward to when that comes out. That's gonna be sometime next year, most likely.
Yeah, that's tentatively it's going to be like summer of 24. So hopefully we'll have some touring plans in place and some U.S. style touring instead of just these regional runs and probably hopefully a trip back to Europe, that kind of thing, just to get the promotion of the album out, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be killer, man. Hopefully, next tour you can get more down south again, like you did. Was it this year when you came when you played South Carolina, or
No,
was that last year?
that was last year, man. That was our
Fuck,
first. Yeah, it was already a year ago. It's
insane.
like that was like the first uh shows we did since the pandemic, man. Was that run with Cloak and Restless Spirit? That was like I remember the first date on that tour was in Providence, Rhode Island, and it was like being on stage and just standing there like, all right, I haven't done this in like 2 years, like in front of people, and it was just weird.
Right.
But now whatever. Now everything's cool now, but like I just since we're talking about that tour, it was like
Yeah.
very, very like weird and uncomfortable for like the first set. And
Hmm.
but then like after like 2 shows, it was back to normal.
That's crazy, man. I can't believe it's been a year. Fuck.
It's time is flying, dude. Time's a flat circle, as you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch True Detective season one if you're listening to this. You figure out what we're talking about. Yeah.
We've done all this before. We'll do it again, man.
I dude, I totally feel that, man. Like,
Sometimes it's crazy though, right? How you do feel like you get these feelings of deja vu, like you've been here
yep.
before, and then you think about it. It's like maybe this is like one of the infinite multiverse versions of myself, doing the same thing again into infinity, and it's just like it's very unsettling when that happens sometimes.
Yeah, that's a theory I have, man. when I was younger, like deja vu used to really hit me. Say I was like 10 or 11 years old, stuff, man. I could swear. I would tell my parents like, "We've been here before." Though we never even been here. This is first. I'm like, no, I've been here before, man. And it was so strong back then when I was younger. And maybe the reason why it was stronger when I was younger because it's still pretty fresh in my mind, I guess, from
Yeah.
if there is like a multiverse or some type of revolving circle of time that we just live through. Like it's very bizarre. I don't really get the feeling of deja vu like I used to, but when I was younger, man, I would get it all the fucking time.
Well, that's what there's some people, these like quantum types that think about like, not only is there infinite versions of this exact life that you're leading, but there's like infinite versions of different iterations of subtle differences, where it's like, there's like another version where I'm like a woman, there's a version where you're me and I'm you, or, like
Right.
it's insane to think about these things, but that's like, and I don't know if any of this stuff holds any water, but like, it's fun to think about it.
No, it totally is, and it makes more sense than a lot of things. I mean, yeah, especially when it comes to like religion, all that stuff. But hey, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I'm not hating on that, whatever. But it's just this type of shit makes more sense to me. Like, there's some scientific shit backing it up. Like this could be real. I don't know.
Oh yeah, a lot of these quantum guys though are like, you kind of wonder about some of the leaps of faith that they have or flights of fancy, and I don't know. It's just I like to read about that stuff. It's actual mathematical shit is like way above my head, even though I have an engineering degree and stuff. It's like I don't to pretend to understand all the stuff that they're talking about. I just like the layman version of it is interesting to read about.
No, totally, man. I'm all down with that stuff. I'm down with that. I'm also into the whole theory that we live in a giant simulation. That a lot of that makes some sense to me too. But
That I can I there are times where I feel like that too, man. Like there have been, especially recently, there's been some definite things that have happened in my life where I feel like, you know, like definitely, this time around, positive things have happened to me instead of just all negative, but which has been the last few years. But like the last few months have been very positive for me. And like part of me is like, man, is someone like pulling the levers behind all this? And, because like sometimes, in the darkest periods of the last couple of years, I would meditate with like, I have put all these intentions out into the universe of like, these are the things I want, these are
Mhm.
like some of the goals I want to achieve to pull myself out of this like darkness that I was in. And then like when they finally manifest themselves, you think about like, wow, is there someone playing a game here? Is there some hand guiding me through, the cosmos? Or did all that intentional meditation make any difference? Or did it change me on some level? And it's just like, sometimes I do think there's a simulation that there is someone like playing. I'm a player in some game that someone's waging.
Right. No, dude, I have weird shit like that happens to me all the time. Like after I was done with like my full time band and everything, I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Like I want to
Yeah.
do music stuff. Like I've always wanted to be a synth player. I've always wanted to do like some weird synthy stuff. And I made that shit happen, but it kind of felt like things kind of fell into place to make that happen. Very weird, dude. Like that and like the whole podcasting thing. Like the
Yeah.
fuck me, I'll be doing podcasts. I'm like the most antisocial person ever, but I enjoy podcasting and talking with
Yeah,
people
dude.
and it
Yeah,
just falls into
you're killing it
place.
too. You're
So
killing it, man. The
weird.
podcast fucking shows have been great, man. Look every when the episodes come out, and always listen, and always good stuff on it.
I appreciate that, man. It's just, yeah, it's weird. It's like we're part of a giant cosmic TV show, or reality show or something, And there's directors and all like, all right, we're gonna do this with this person. Like it's some weird shit. Like can't explain it, but nobody can. But we all have our
Yeah,
theories on what it is. But
it's super interesting to meditate on that, then there are other times where I just think like just the whole fucking universe is just chaos. It's like
yeah,
there's both sides of the coin where everything seems to be totally order and like intention, and then I just feel like everything's just complete chaos, and then these brief periods of order are like the exception to the rule. You know what I mean?
right. It's wild, man. You could go on for days, like just thinking about this shit, man. It can consume you.
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh yeah. Well, Mike, I hope, like I said, I hope you have a killer rest of your shows and stuff, dude. And it's always great talking with you. And we'll do this again soon.
Yes, brother. Of course, man. And once again, man, congratulations on the new Praxis Horn release. It's awesome, and look forward to more material by you.
I appreciate that, man. And hopefully there's some other cool things coming out in the future. So we'll see. So I'm just throwing it out there for see if the cosmic gods, make this shit happen. So we'll see.
Oh yeah. All right, man. Have a good weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Take care.
Bye.